Welcome to the Common Humanity podcast, where we are here to have real human conversations. Today I have Cristina. And Cristina, I want to know, who are you?
Who am I? I am a CrossFit coach by day. That's my job. I am just if I had give myself a little tagline, I'm just a person trying to rewrite the script on fitness, what we believe that fitness is, what we view fitness as. And I'm a single mom of two girls, hoping to share with them some of the same, I guess, different than typical views of what fitness and health and a beautiful life looks like. So, yeah, I don't know. That's what I do. I coach and I'm a mom.
I love that. Me too. Um, so if you were to brain and words work, if you were to define fitness, how would you define it?
Well, gosh, I define fitness as taking care of your body's needs. And that's very broad. But I also think that fitness is different for every human out there. Fitness for one person could look like walking to the end of the driveway to get something out of their mailbox. And that could be their fitness to the day. Fitness for another person might look like competition or, a professional athlete. But I believe that fitness is, can be widely used for an individual's needs and, just what they need to be healthy and take care of themselves mentally, physically, emotionally. I just think there's just so many different rabbit holes that that I could go down.
Well, I'm sure we'll down some
Yeah,
of them.
I was thinking that.
I really like that because I'm a firm believer as well that so life is different for everybody.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that we have in common that we share as humans, but there are a lot of things that we have to tailor to our own needs.
Mm.
And I would never, like, one of my favorite things as a personal trainer is trying to get the idea across to people that their job is to find the kind of movement that they enjoy.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of things that get sold to us all the time of like what you're supposed to do and what like how you should move and what it's supposed to look like and blah 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 blah. But I love the way that you said how people's fitness is going to look different because somebody like walking to the end of the driveway, there are people who spend months working up to the ability to walk to the end of their driveway, and that's a win for some people. And that's okay. That's not just okay, that's great. Like whatever steps somebody can take to improve their life, I think is beautiful. And I think for me, I know one of the things in, we'll call it the fitness industry, that is a big pet peeve of mine is the idea that fitness has to be branded as one thing or in a specific way, especially when it comes to what fitness looks like. So to be fit looks like a certain thing.
Right.
And one thing I always talk about is that fitness has nothing to do with what your body looks like, and it has everything to do with what your body can do. Because
Yes.
your body's job is to move you through life. And if there are people who might have a six pack, but they're too tired to enjoy the gloriousness of the world around them, So it's not the kind of fitness I want in my life, right? Um, so one question I have is why CrossFit? Like, what was the thing that drew you to CrossFit versus any of the other modalities of fitness out there?
Yeah. It's a great question. CrossFit defines fitness as work capacity across broad time and modal domains, meaning it's just what you just said. It's what your body can do, right? And we're always striving to increase that work capacity, right? But that it doesn't say, it's not defined as peak work capacity or, elite work capacity. It's just what is your work capacity, and we're going to achieve it. We're going to achieve to increase it. So that when I learned that in my CrossFit Level 1 certification, it really started to open my eyes because I realized that all of the ways that CrossFit defines fitness and health and, just all of the pieces of the CrossFit methodology, there's nowhere does it say, and you have to look like this, and you have to be like this. It's all about performance and data and just constant improvement as a human. And it's infinitely scalable to meet people where they're at. And I think that that's a common misconception that happens with CrossFit is that, people look at something like the CrossFit Games, which is an incredible competition with incredible humans who are incredibly fit, but that's not all that CrossFit is. So I think that because I had such life-changing breakthrough when I went to my CrossFit Level 1, I made it my goal to become a coach so that I could show other people like, hey, come try this because I promise it's not necessarily that. And, I'm not trying to take anything away from those athletes because they're incredible. And, the sacrifices and the dedication that they've made for their fitness is incredible, but that's not everybody's journey. And it doesn't mean that you can't do it. And that doesn't mean that it won't change your life. So I really just absolutely love, all of what the CrossFit methodology is built upon. Cause it's what your body can do.
I I love that. I have always wanted to try CrossFit, but I haven't because it's out of my price range. And part of it is like we have a place in town that you get a week free, but I know 100% that if I got a week free, I'm going to get addicted to it in a week. I'm going to have to figure out how to pay for that long term. Um, and yeah, so it's one of the things that has always interested me because um, I came on to the idea of CrossFit like I don't want to say past its prime because I feel like CrossFit's like still in its prime. But like after it was the new kid on the block, it had
Sure.
been around for a while. Like it was old enough to get a little bit of a bad rap, but was already coming into like its redemption arc
Sure.
where there were more people coming out saying like, yeah, there are downsides and there are bad coaches, which is any sport, anywhere, whatever.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that everything out there is going to be bad, like, right? Because one of the things I remember people always talk about CrossFit is that like a higher chance of injury. And I'm like, okay, anything you part like there's a reason that every waiver you sign in any gym says like, have you talked to your doctor about taking on a new exercise regimen? Like that's anything you do because whether it's CrossFit or powerlifting or bodybuilding or football, whatever you want it to be, if you push your body past its limits too fast, you risk injury.
Yep.
And a lot of that, which I've learned in my own bad experience, has been my brain wanting to go further than my body is ready to go and not having that connection between the two of like, what am I physically capable of and what do I mentally want to achieve, and taking the steps to get there instead of trying to jump there on the first go round. Um, but one of the things that I've always loved, like whether it's seeing things online or my friends talking about the boxes that they go to, is that everybody's welcome in a CrossFit gym. It doesn't matter how old you are. It does not matter how big or how small you are. You like, are there people who are super jacked throwing around really heavy weight? Heck yeah.
Yeah.
And do I totally want to be like one of them someday? Also, heck yeah. But um it's not the requirement for everybody to be doing like 200 plus pounds Olympic lifts over their heads. Like that's
Absolutely.
um and I don't know, I think it's someday I'm gonna try it. Someday.
I'll get you to try it.
I will next time. I don't know. I feel like I sort of know where you live, but someday if I go there, I'm coming to a class.
Yes.
Promise. Pinky swear. Um, but yeah, so one of the things that I know that we have kind of talked about how we kind of got connected was this idea of being an athlete in a bigger body. And one of the things, so I personally, I think that literally every human being is an athlete. That is my view of the world. Humans are built as athletes. We are built to move. If you study just our body, the mechanisms that make our bodies work, we are built to move. We are built to walk and run and jump and bound and do all of those things. And that to me is the definition of an athlete. There's the like sub definition of like competes in something that I always like. I argue that things like, I don't know, poker's not a sport, but there are some people who would argue that poker's a sport. I don't know. Anything you compete in, I guess, could be considered a sport. But I think there's a slight differentiation between playing a sport versus being an athlete. Like you don't have to play a sport to be an athlete,
Yeah.
because competition is not for everyone. I don't understand that because I am competitive like playing checkers, but that's a me problem. Um so really it's my kids' problem because they live. But one of the things that we're seeing a lot on the internet, especially recently, like there was a big backlash against Nike for coming out with plus size fitness clothing.
Yes.
And it's like, oh, okay, wait, what? So we're not supposed to let people who you want to get into the gym to improve themselves wear clothes that fit them? And like finding clothes that fit is already so hard. And now I'm just so happy that I get to live in a world where my job consists of me wearing spandex, because way more comfortable than trying to find a pair of jeans that fit. But what what has been your experience as a human being in that regard, and then where has that taken you on your journey?
Um, I think that, as a human being, I experienced a lot of discrimination for my size throughout a lot of different stages of my life. Um, I think that as a child, I was always, I always say like I was always chubby. The fact of the matter was though, I really wasn't ever very much overweight, but I am tall and I have just like a broader shoulder, larger frame. I am not a petite woman. And so growing up, um, I was always told that I was big. Um, it was very much made clear to me by everyone surrounding me that I shouldn't be eating certain things, that I should be losing weight, that I should strive to be smaller in more ways than one, right? I think that I've always kind of learned like I should be smaller in a sense that I should just be quiet and do what I'm told. And I should be smaller in a sense that I should lose weight. And so you definitely start to internalize those kind of beliefs about yourself, especially when they are, pumped into you at such a young age. And so then I ended up getting overweight because I think that just constantly being told, like, get smaller, be smaller, stop eating that, getting food taken away from me as a child, like, it just manifested into exactly what my family didn't want to see happen. So, I think that I then did experience life in a way that, you know, like you're saying, like it's so much harder to find clothing that fits. And, a specific experience that comes to mind is when I gave birth to my daughters. And my first daughter, I had an extremely complicated C-section, which ended up in, I actually was not numb for the C-section. It was the worst thing I've ever experienced physically in my life. And afterwards, they kept me in the hospital for a number of days, wouldn't tell me like what the complications were. Like something was wrong with the surgery in some way. So much so that like my surgeon had to ask to switch out with another surgeon. It was like a mess, and nobody was communicating anything with me. Long story short, I somehow got a hold of my medical records when I went to switch doctors, and it said in the notes that there were complications in the C-section that were caused by the patient being morbidly obese. And the surgery had nothing to do with my body or my health or anything of that matter. Something happened with, the surgeon not feeling well, or like needing to excuse herself, and then not giving me the proper dosage of, the epidural to keep me numb. It was a very like it was a very not a me problem, but I saw it clear as day on the paper. It said patient is morbidly obese, and that's, they just diagnosed it as that. And so I remember internalizing in that moment, like, wow, everything that has happened to me that's been a struggle is because I'm overweight. And so it just becomes very hard to like pull yourself out of that mentality. And so when I found CrossFit, I really learned how to reframe that. And so, it's just like, yeah, I mean, I feel like I can go on and on. I feel like we just took a bunch of turns and twists, a lot of different
I
places.
take tangents all the time.
Yeah, yeah. But like, just, just providing the example of like, there's been a lot of situations in my life where it's been this XYZ happened because you're overweight. And it's like, you carry that. You carry that, and then it becomes excess weight even more so. And it just spirals. So I can completely empathize with the fact of how hard it is to live in that body. And then even harder to then kind of take control, reframe, and figure out like, okay, how do I find healthy? Not necessarily skinny or, weight loss, but like, how do I find healthy so that I can, cure my mind and use my body? And, it's just, it's hard. It's really hard.
um, do you mind if I share a story?
No, please.
So with my second pregnancy, so I struggled with disordered eating all through adolescence into my 20s, into my 30s. Like I've only been in recovery for like a year and a half now. But it was really bad before my first son. And when I got pregnant, like I got pregnant and I was like, okay, I need to stop taking a bunch of diet pills, I need to stop, whatever. All of that stuff. Started to take care of myself because it wasn't just me I was worried about, right? Gained 60 pounds in 3 months and had a hard time losing the weight. And 2 years later, get pregnant with my second son. And so I'm pushing like I started out in like at like 215-ish, gained a little bit of weight, and then as I was getting into my third trimester, I just kept losing weight. And I was like I was dropping down to like 180 during my pregnancy now, and it's the third trimester, and I'm like, we're supposed to be growing. And I talked to my doctor, and my doctor is this super tall, super slender lady, and all she said was, well, you were a little above where you should have been anyway, so it's not a problem. And I was like, okay, so you're telling me that I've lost 40 pounds in my third trimester and this isn't a problem. There's nothing. So, and I don't know if these things are connected. I'm not a doctor, but that son has a ton of allergies. Having him increased my allergies dramatically. And he was failure to thrive for like until he turned 1. So from I think 2 months to 9 months, he weighed 12 pounds and they couldn't figure out how to get him to gain weight. And my brain is like, you're telling me that these two things weren't connected, that we couldn't have figured out that there was something going on when, because when I'm pregnant, that's like we're essentially sharing my body, right? And for some reason, he's not processing food and it's like he's taking all my food, whatever it is. And I'm losing weight that I'm not supposed to be losing. And then it turns out he does the same thing after he's born. And I'm just like, there has to be some sort of connection, but wasn't even something that anybody wanted to look at because I was already like my BMI was already a little too high. And I'm like, too high for whom? Like right now, I weigh 220 pounds, and that's more than I weighed when I was pregnant, and I'm perfectly healthy. So it's just one of those things. And now my son is built like me, my second son. My first son built like his dad. He's tall, he's skinny, he's whatever. Second son, he's broad. He has been at the 98th percentile in height and weight. Like he learned how to eat, his body stopped rejecting food, and he has been at the 98th percentile ever since. And last year was the first year his doctor, like every year, I'm just like, is this something I need to worry about? And his doctor says no and no and no. And last year he turned 7 and his doctor was like, maybe we should look at this. And I'm like, why? He's active. He eats healthily. He like his biggest problem is he doesn't eat meat because he's like a tiny little vegan because he's like, wait, this is an adorable animal. I can't do that. Give me strawberries. And but he's at the 98th percentile. And I'm like, right. But he's tracking the same he has tracked. Like I was more worried when he was at the 0th percentile, when he wasn't even on the scale. And now, like he's 7 years old and he's almost 5 feet tall. And I'm like, that's and so like as a mom, I'm just like, how do I have these conversations about health with my kids without letting all of that outside societal expectations of like what your body's supposed to be seep into that? Because I had that as a kid and that put me in very unhealthy positions. Um, Mine was my dad who said, well, why aren't you as skinny as the other girls? And I was like, your genetics? Like, hi, Viking heritage. I got that from you, sir. Do you want? I would always joke with my mom. I was just like, here's the deal, because I'm built to be able to plow the field if the oxen are too tired. Like that's what I'm built for. And I'm pretty like put a sled behind me, throw a few 100 pounds on there, and I will drag it across the field if I have to. But it's one of those things that like there's so much in our medical system that will simply be overlooked
Yep.
if you are not in whatever their ideal weight range is. Even though it has been agreed upon for probably 2 decades at least that BMI is a terrible judge of even how overweight or underweight somebody is, because it doesn't take into consideration bone density or muscle mass or activity level or any of that.
Mhm.
But like they're like, we agree that it's a terrible standard to use, but we're all still going to use it, which just makes me want to scream.
Yeah. Agreed. Agreed. I even have like more recently I went to the doctor within the past like year or so, just like not quite being able to put a finger on some issues that I've been having with just like um I don't like I don't want to say depression, but just like haven't felt like fully myself, increased anxiety, and just trouble sleep, just like little things that I'm like, I just feel like maybe there's something going on. And so I decided to go to an OBGYN just to kind of like, I don't know, maybe there's something hormonal happening or something with my cycle or, whatever it could be. And I remember sitting down and like she asked me about me and I told her, I was like, yeah, like I'm a CrossFit coach. I love CrossFit, blah, blah, blah. Even told her about like my mission, like, oh, my mission is to like show people that, anybody can work out. And, she was like, that's so amazing. And then like literally said to me, I wish that I could, find the motivation to work out. And so it's like, it's funny because it's like, here she is admitting that she doesn't even work out. And then come to find out, like they did like a blood test, they did some other things. And she's like, you know, have you ever just considered, diet and exercise as like a solution to my issues that I can't? And I'm like, we just had a conversation. Like I just told you what my job is. Like how like yes, I've considered it. Like I remember just being so dumbfounded that like not only did she make an assumption based on my BMI, but she also clearly wasn't listening to me when we had a conversation. And that's
Yeah.
not to say that every doctor is like the worst, but it's just like they're just the same how you said like, there's some like not great coaches out there. And that's just fact. But like it's just unfortunate. It's just really unfortunate that it's a lot harder for us to get help sometimes because of what we look like and because of what the scale says.
Yeah. I'm gonna reference back to a previous episode where we talked about endometriosis, and one of the things that Nicole from that episode, her big takeaway was like, you have the power to hire your doctor. Like, and if your doctor's not working for you, find a new one. And it's one of the things that I've avoided going to doctors. Well, one, because they're expensive and they usually are like, you're fine, whatever. Um, or you have a cold, give me $300. But I finally found a general practitioner who, like, after I went through eating disorder recovery and I gained weight and all of this stuff, and it was the first doctor, like, my doctor in high school, I had visible abdominals, and they told me I was morbidly obese because of my height to weight ratio. And I'm like, I don't think you understand. And now, as a larger human being, who I feel like at this point, I'm just living in the size of body that I'm intended to live in rather than trying to constantly shrink myself into an unhealthy size and shape for who I am. And I had a doctor who, like, I literally asked, I was like, you weighed me, you've looked at all my stuff, like, where's the like, I'm ready. Okay, I'm ready for the lecture. Give me the lecture. Tell me that I need to eat better and exercise more and do all of this stuff. And she was like, you're active, you're healthy, like all of everything, like your blood work checks out, everything checks out. you have very healthy habits. And that's the other thing I want to point out is that health I saw a quote the other day and I loved it. Health is what you do, not what you look like. So health is equal to the habits that you have in your life. So it's how you eat, it's how you move, it's how you sleep, which people forget so much. It's how you treat yourself. Like when your negative thoughts come into your head, do you agree with them or do you try to counter them with what's closer to reality? Like all of those things play into health. But the point of this was that I have found one doctor, and if there's one, there's got to be more who are out there who understand that health is the summation of your habits and not a number on the scale and not and even honestly not even the numbers in the blood work. Like if your blood work says that there's something off, that to me doesn't say hey you're unhealthy, that says hey we have data of things that we need to address. And those are two, and I think that's just the way of looking at things, because we have this like black and white view of the world where you either are good or you're bad. You're either healthy or unhealthy. But everything falls into a gray area. And we have like so if instead of looking at those data points and addressing it as a negative thing, instead addressing it as a thing that is, and like okay, is your A1C a little high? Super cool. These are the things you can do to help with that. Are your triglycerides high? Okay, here are a couple of things you can do to help with that. But it's not like being one thing or another thing is not inherently bad or good. And that was my tangent.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, like what you just said, right? Like this is what we were all taught. If that's the case, let's say your A1C is high, you're a bad person. Like that's
Mhm.
what we're taught, right? Like it has moral association to it. And that's just like not true, you know? And so it just uh that makes it even harder for people who need help to get help, you know, to seek out a gym, to seek out maybe just like some nutrition guidance, you know, because you don't know what you don't know. And we can't sit here and shame people who, you know, have lost control of their health or who, you know, are gaining a lot of weight or living a lifestyle that's not healthy. You know, I think it's easy to sit down and say like, "Oh, look at that person like not doing anything." But it's like it's 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 because it's so scary. It's
Mhm.
so scary and it's so hard to find somebody to help you. And if you don't know how to do it, like if nobody taught you, that's not your fault. Like it's not your fault. And yes, you have to get yourself up and you have to find somebody to help you. Yes, you do. Like we can't hand this stuff out, you know, as a coach. Like I can I can do what I can't do it for you, right? Like I can't work out for you. I can't make your meals for you. Um but you have to have the courage to seek me out. And you know, that's why I feel like it's my responsibility to be so open and honest and vulnerable in like a social media space, so that if there is somebody like that out there who hasn't been lucky enough to find the right person to help, they'll know that that person exists. And so, you know, we have to have more empathy for people, because it's not it's not as simple as it sounds. Yes, you have to do the work, but it's not that easy.
100%. I'd also like to add to that. So a lot of times, and I say this because I saw like this comment on an Instagram post yesterday where someone's just like, everybody knows what they need to do. Everybody knows that they need to eat more fruits and veggies and eat less refined sugar and whatever, all of the things that everybody knows.
Mhm.
But there is a difference between knowing something and embodying something. And there are steps you have to take because sometimes that help isn't somebody who is giving you a diet plan to follow or a or a workout routine to adhere to, right? Sometimes that help is someone like being your accountability partner, saying, "Did you try this week? Did you?" And like pointing out your successes, because especially when you're making lifestyle changes, if you're trying to change your lifestyle from like, "Hey, we eat out 6 days a week," to making all of your food at home so that you can have healthier options, like great, that's a great change to make to ensure like your food quality, right? But the chances of you being able to go from eating out every day of the week to making all of your food at home instantly is just unrealistic. So having someone who's there and says, "Okay, oh, you made 2 meals at home this week? That is fantastic. How did you feel after eating those meals? How did you feel making them? How did you feel spending time with your family? How did you feel after like how did your body feel after consuming a different type of food that like you did you feel more energetic? Did you sleep better?" And pointing out those little things that does, because a lot of times we can't see that for ourselves. Like we are so bogged down in like, I have to get all of this stuff done, I have to make these grandiose life changes for my health. But it's the tiny tiny little steps, and having someone who notices, like, "Hey, hey, I noticed that you added 2 inches to your box jump. 2 inches." And then someone's just like, "Well, yeah, I added 2 inches, but I've been working for that for months." Like, super cool. I noticed. Like, did you notice that you added 2 inches to your box jump? Because like 6 months ago, you were afraid that you were gonna scrape your shins on the box and you wouldn't even go for it. And now you're jumping 12 inches off the ground. And even like just again, somebody somebody to notice. It doesn't have to be a coach, it doesn't have to be a dietitian. Those are
Right.
people who are well versed in that, who are trained and have the empathy kind of built in, because that's like they're doing what they love to do. But even if it's a friend, like as a friend, I always tell people like just like tell people, even if it's not a friend, if it's a stranger, like compliment somebody's shoes. It's just a shame that nobody tells like parents, I always say parents, adults, that they look like they would run fast in those shoes, because like we stop telling people that as they age. But like just when you notice something about somebody, tell them, because that could be the thing that keeps them on track. It could be the thing that gives them the motivation to start or to keep going. And it's just like there's just so much to it. Oh my goodness. Anyway.
No, I agree. I agree. That's why I coach, because I I just want people to feel good in that space and proud of their accomplishments. And I think that um getting getting healthy, you know, specifically working out, I don't care how fit you are or not fit or, whatever. If you're just starting, you've never worked out before, or if you're an elite athlete, when you do a workout, I truly believe that it is the most vulnerable position you can be in as a human. Because I think we just like shed all of our defenses and like it truly, opens up the floodgates of any type of emotion or, anything that you're holding inside. And if there isn't somebody present in that time that can be there to just help you through that, I truly believe that that's why people don't stick with, fitness routines for a consistent and long time because, there's they maybe feel lonely during that time or, afraid, or worse, somebody says something crappy when
Mhm.
you're in the middle of that vulnerable space. And then it just is a downward spiral from there.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer that vulnerability is required to build strength. And then
Yeah.
whether it's mental strength or physical strength, um, I compete in powerlifting. So like for me, there is nothing more vulnerable than being in front of a bunch of people on a platform and
Mhm.
like failing 100%. Just like if you don't get the weight up, that like by definition that's failure. And but that is necessary to get stronger. And to the vulnerability piece, like I went to drug tested North Americans. It was my first national competition, and I had a bad injury last year, whatever. And I was just trying to get my deadlift back over 300. And I pulled 308 on my last attempt and got 3 white lights. And I just started bawling on a national stage in front of all these people, and I'm just crying. I'm like run backstage because I'm like I can't, like, first of all I need to get off the platform for the next person, but I was just so many emotions. And there were people like there were people from Canada who like pep talked me before that, and like they came up to me afterwards and hugged me, like some like world champion from Canada who's like 65 years old is like, "You got it, honey." And I'm like, "Thank you." like like so vulnerable, so emotional. And then also like when you find your space, so uplifting. And it's one of the like the biggest shames I think in the world is whether it's a gym space or just how society has infiltrated people's minds so much that they're afraid to find that space.
Yeah.
And like every once in a while you hear those stories of the people who are like, I found my space, I found my people, I found like a support system in the gym, in the box, wherever, whatever it is.
Mhm.
And can I have a totally random question? I'm gonna ask, but don't answer yet. Why do they call it a box? um, but but there's so many people who haven't reached that, and so that's why I think it's so important to have these conversations. So hopefully somebody will see like, okay, there is a place, that there's support, that there is just love and empathy, and find the courage to find it in their own life. So that's why I think like being vulnerable is so important. So important.
Agreed. Agreed. To answer your question, I think back in the day, back when CrossFit started, it was all about this kind of minimal effective dose to create fitness and
Mhm.
get people stronger and better. And I think that the terminology box came from the fact that all you need is four walls. Like
Oh,
the people were finding ways to get fit with like minimal equipment. And so yeah, that's kind of where it came from. But I think that it's also kind of poetic, to like culminate what we were just talking about of just like, you know, you don't need to find something fancy. You just need to find what works for you. And obviously CrossFit works for me, but like it doesn't work for everybody. I think everybody should try it because I don't think you would know otherwise. But um you just have to find something, and it just, all you need is four walls and some people surrounding you, and find the right people. And it is possible for everyone to find that. And I think there's a lot of people who maybe don't believe that they're worthy of taking care of their body, maybe don't believe that they're capable. Um, but yeah, if you find the right place, everyone is capable of that.
yeah. And I think that part that you just hit on is a big part. The amount of hell we are sometimes willing to put our body through because we don't see our own worth. And part of that, again, I mean I blame society for a lot of things, but it's ingrained in us early on, whether it's, you're not you're not skinny enough, or you're not smart enough, or you're not tall enough, or you're not pretty enough, or any of those things that have somehow seeped into our brains, um, it it makes it hard to start. And like the hardest part of going to the gym is starting. The hardest part is getting there. Once you
Yes.
get there, like there's a whole bunch of different things that you can do, but the hardest part is just showing up. Once you've overcome that piece, then like then you take the next step and you just keep putting one foot in front of the other. I've had people come to my classes that I teach who are, because I teach seniors in the morning, and I've had people come in and say, I just want to watch. Like, can I just see what you guys are doing? And they just sit in a chair and they watch us exercise. And they come back a couple times and just keep inviting them back. They're like, yeah, when you're ready to try it out, you stand up. And that's how we roll. But it's, I don't know. I think we have in the fitness industry, there is this ideal look of a human being or whatever. And those people usually look pretty intimidating. And even if you do know people who are like super jacked and ripped and whatever, more often than not, they're like teddy bears. They're teddy bears who just throw around heavyweight.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but it's hard to come talk to them because, well, one, social anxiety, but two, um, they're if you don't feel like you're on the same level, but remembering that if we go back to what fitness is what you're doing for your body, right? And those people have that look to them because of what they do for their body. And it's never going to be the same. Like, you could eat the exact same way that person eats, you could train the exact same way that person trains, and you are not going to look exactly like that person looks.
Right.
And that's facts,
Mhm.
because you are your own human being. You are your own genetic makeup. And yeah, I don't know, it's very interesting. One
Mhm.
question is, how as a mom do you feel like this journey has affected you?
Mhm. I'm very conscious of what I do and say in front of my daughters. I constantly struggle with, they're kids, they're 5 and 3, and all they want is sugar, and that's it. And they don't want to eat dinner and they don't want to eat vegetables. And I have come to the conclusion, and I've also watched them, watch this work, where I have needed to stop labeling the food that I give to them in any way, shape, or form. Because I'll use yesterday as an example. I picked them up from daycare and they wanted to get ice cream. Now, in my upbringing, that would not be allowed. There's no such thing as ice cream before dinner. There's no such thing as ice cream when you want it, really. Like for me growing up, it just was like, if I was to get ice cream as a kid, I had to get the fat-free kind. So that like it just, that's how I was raised. So I get insanely triggered by these situations where I'm faced with this choice of like, do I say yes? Do I say no? I can't just let them eat whatever they want whenever they want it, but can't I? Right? Because I have come to believe in my journey, where, I too have struggled with disordered eating in the past. And so I understand what it's like to have a very bad relationship with food. I understand what it's like to start to heal. And what I've come to notice in my healing is that there is a difference between not dieting and eating what your body truly wants.
Mhm.
And sometimes that means giving into that true desire for some ice cream. And so we got ice cream on the way home yesterday, and I, working on my own intuitive eating practices, truly looked at that ice cream cone and I was like, I really just don't even want it. Like, ice cream wasn't on the radar for me. It was for the girls, but like I wasn't thinking about it. It wasn't like a craving for me. And so I was able to then get ice cream with my daughters and explain to them that like I really just didn't feel like ice cream. Not mommy's trying to lose weight, not mommy doesn't like her body, nothing of that matter. Just, I don't feel like ice cream. And then they ate their ice cream. And lo and behold, we get home and they eat their dinner because there's no association with, I have to eat this to get this, or this is good and this is bad. So I really have tried to completely erase any type of, uh, you know, truly label of any kind of food. I think I can educate them about how to eat healthy without labeling foods. So that's kind of something that I'm constantly trying to figure out the best way to do it. And so that's what's working for me right now, and I think it's working for them.
That makes me so happy. So happy. Um, I'm gonna share a story. So my boys were with my ex-husband this weekend, and my youngest um does not like a lot of things, and he has I, sensory issues, right? Like he's like me, he's a texture person. And if the texture is off, he's not putting it in his mouth. So, like, we've been trying to get him to eat more, like a larger variety of foods because he has a very plain diet. He really likes pizza, and he will eat pizza every meal if we let him, which we don't. So, um, my ex-husband had taken them grocery shopping and let him pick out the foods he wanted for the weekend. And um then he called me in a panic because he was like, he won't eat anything. What am I
Mhm.
supposed to do? Like, all he wants right now is pizza. Like, the watermelon that he picked out tasted funny. The strawberries that he picked out had a weird texture. The oranges that he had, like, were too squishy. And I was like, he's a texture kid. Like, if it feels wrong in his mouth, he's not going to eat it. Like, we get by at my house because we have a blender and he knows how to make his smoothie. Like, he knows, like, and he was so proud when he was like, okay, like, teach me how to make my smoothie. And he was like, okay, I need this many bananas, I need this many strawberries, I need this much ice, I need this much protein powder so I can make sure I have protein in it. But it works because it's all blended up. So it's just juice to him at that point. Um, but we took all the texture out of it. And so my ex-husband is just freaking out. And he's like, all he wants, right, like, he just keeps asking for popcorn. And I'm like, you can't just eat popcorn for dinner. And I was like, do you remember when, like, when we first had our oldest and I was like a super crunchy mom? I was like, I'm making all my own baby food. My kids aren't allowed to have sugar until they're over a year old. I like all of it. I was like, they're going to eat vegetables and fruits and have a like, they're going to be those kids that eat salmon for dinner, which I don't know why I don't eat salmon for dinner. But I had these big goals of like the type of mom I was gonna be, and realized over time, like, fed is best. Food, like, are donuts the most optimal nutrition for anybody? No. But that does not mean that donuts aren't something that someone can enjoy on occasion. Nobody, I've never met a single person who wants to live off of donuts
Right.
ever. Like, most people, one donut, maybe two donuts. And
Mhm.
after that, they're like, no, because it doesn't feel good. Like,
Right.
that kind of, and it might taste good, but even after a certain point, it stops tasting good. So, taking those food rules away so that our kids don't grow up with rules of this is good and this is bad, but instead that like this is what my body is asking for, and this is so yeah. So I think it's beautiful that you've been able to have those conversations and have those interactions. And I think it's going to be like it's going to lead to a much healthier future, which so hopefully other people can do the same. But it's hard, especially with picky eaters, whatever. Like they will I mean, my kids, they love sugar just as much as anybody else. After Easter, they were like, I have to tell them, like, you can't just eat Easter candy.
Right.
That's not acceptable. But if you put strawberries in front of them, then they'll just eat a ton of strawberries and then they forget that they wanted candy because they've already had their shot of sugar and they're satisfied and they so it's just a matter of like of having those conversations and having that flexibility of like of your own mind to get rid of those rigid thoughts that we were raised in
Yeah.
and not pass them on to the next generation.
Yeah.
We are going to jump into our little game.
Okay.
So we have 3 questions.
All right.
Your first one, or our first one, whatever. If you could only choose one, would you rather be rich or famous, and why?
Uh, oh man. You know what? I'd have to say famous because it's more important to me that I use my existence on this planet, whatever experiences that I've had in life, sharing that with others and trying to help others is so much more important to me than having money for myself. If I could get other people to learn how to believe in themselves the way I've had to kind of teach myself, that is what I would want.
I like that. I'm actually going to say rich, but for the exact same reason. Well, not the exact same reason, but similar reason.
Yeah.
Um, I I love helping people and I love having an impact on people, but I don't want to be famous. Like I don't want to walk down the street and like people know who I am.
Mm,
Like that is like terrifying to me, but I would like to be able to have money where I can give back to because if I were rich, I would definitely donate a lot, like most of my money to the causes that and like just building up community and things like that and investing in other people
mm,
because that is what I think has honestly not the most impact, but that's what money impacts our world so much and it can make a huge difference if it is used for good and not evil.
yeah, agreed.
But yeah. Okay. You are living your life purpose, or sorry, are you living your life's purpose or are you still searching?
I think I can confidently say that I am living my life's purpose now, but it took me all of my, not that I'm that old, but all of my 34 years to figure that out. But I truly believe everything I've been through, everything that I've struggled with, I now know the reason why, and I'm now able to use it to help others. And I truly believe that this is what I was meant to be doing. So, yeah.
Love it. I am not searching, but still building.
I like
So
that. I like
I
that.
I know my purpose, but I'm still trying to get off the ground with the success of making it my full-time
Yeah.
gig.
Yeah.
Yeah, but found it, harnessing it. Yeah.
Yes. Love that.
Okay, and last one. If you could go back in time and give advice to your 15-year-old self on how to live their life, what would
Wow.
you tell them?
Wow. I would probably say that it doesn't have to be this hard. And I think that what I mean by that is like life is supposed to be beautiful and you're supposed to be who you are. And it's okay if some people don't like you. And it's okay if you are alone sometimes. And it's okay if you screw up and make a mistake. It's not meant to be this hard. We're meant to enjoy our life. We're meant to enjoy living, have fun, laugh. You know, it's part of why fitness is so important to me, right? Having the ability to take fitness outside of the gym, go on hikes, explore the world, go on adventures, be spontaneous. Like life is meant to be enjoyed. And I think that if I could just tell myself when I was 15 that it just, the things that you think matter don't matter. And you need to just do what feels right in your soul.
I love that. I so much. I'm a record your answer and send it to my 50-year-old self too. um, the thing I would say to my 15-year-old self, um, to put it simply, would be it gets better. Keep one foot in front of the other. Like just keep going.
Yeah.
Um, because at 15, I was still very, very much in a place where I did not want to exist. And I like the piece you said. I think that the piece you said the most is that it doesn't have to be this hard. And it was one of those things I did not learn until this is what I tell people, like one I have friends who are still in their 20s who are like, oh my God, I don't want to get old. And I'm like, no, trust me, you do. Like,
You do.
please
It gets
just
good.
once you get out of the 20s, it's not magical by any means, but there's just and you have to go through your 20s and all of the lessons that you learn in your 20s to be able to get to your 30s and be that person who's just like, I did not have to make it that hard. Um, but I think just that piece that there's hope in the future. Like it doesn't have to be this hard. Keep putting one foot in front of the other. It will get better. I'd also probably preface with, I know you're not gonna listen to me all the
Yeah.
time because my 15-year-old self was kind of obstinate. My 5-year-old self is too, but I feel like I've earned it now. So,
Absolutely.
okay, before we sign off, if there's one thing that you want the world to know, to embody, to hear, what is it?
You are capable of so much more than you think. And so go out there and find the person that you need to help you, whether it's somebody in your family, whether it's a coach, whether it's uh nutrition guidance, whether it's a gym, you know, whatever it is. And don't stop until you find it, because we all have that thing. We all have the thing that's going to help us get you know, out of whatever hole we've dug ourselves into. But I just feel like, you know, and again, I know I said this earlier, like nobody can do it for you. Like it's, if you want a better life, you have to work for it and you have to go out and seek it out. But go out and find somebody who will help, because somebody will be there for you. And, you know, you just have to ask, and you have to follow through and you have to commit, and but you're capable. I think that's it. If I could make it, more succinct, you are capable of way more than you believe.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
Thank
So, Christina, thank you for joining
you.
me on the Humanity podcast, where we're here to have real human conversations. Until next time.